All right, peace and blessings, and welcome to another episode of the Author Spotlight. I'm your host, Rob YB Youngblood. I serve as the president of sales for Self-Published in 30 Days, the #1 self-publishing company in the world. And I'm so excited to have Andrea Waltz with me. Andrea, I am so excited. I told you before I hit the record button that this is a true honor to have you on the show, because your book, Go for No, and the one you co-authored, really impacted me in my journey in sales. So would love to be able to have you talk about that. But first, I think I said 2 words first. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know where you're from originally.
Well, it is so good to be with you, Rob. I love getting this opportunity to chat with you today. And yeah, so where am I from originally? I'm the child of a United States Air Force pilot. So my young life, I was kind of moving all over the place with him. So it's kind of weird. I don't really know where I'm from. Actually, I grew up mostly in Southern California. That's where I grew up. So, and now make my home in Florida. Richard and I have lived here for 10 years. I have spent the last 2 decades in the, I guess, speaking, training, personal growth and development space, as somebody who teaches people in every business, every industry, every facet of life, how to think and feel differently about failure, rejection, and hearing the word no to be more successful. The big way that we do that is by writing and publishing books, self-publishing. So it's obviously, this is a perfect fit. I really believe in the self-publishing journey. I don't think you should wait for permission from the big New York publishers. You don't have to, you shouldn't, and you can do it yourself. And if you're coachable, and you write a good book, you can be very successful in your niche with a book. So that's kind of what I've managed to do over the last 20 years.
I love it. And that energy that you're giving us today is truly needed and welcome, because there's so many aspiring authors who struggle with just this whole notion of, #1, getting their book out there, going through the necessary steps. Clearly, you had success in doing that. Talk a little bit about your book. What's the name of your book, and how did it come about?
So the book is titled Go for No, and the subtitle is Yes is the Destination, No is How You Get There. It's actually a fable. We decided that we didn't want, and really Richard made this decision. He decided that he didn't want to just do kind of your standard informational nonfiction book. He wanted to kind of make a mashup of a fable along with this really powerful life lesson of, you've got to be willing to hear no more often if you want more yeses in your life. So it's a story about a guy who wakes up one morning, he goes to bed, nothing special happens. He wakes up one morning and he is in a gorgeous house, not sure whose house it belongs to, discovers that it belongs to a wildly successful future version of himself. He is somehow magically transported 10 years in the future and gets to meet himself. Now, this him in the future is super successful. Now, that's great news, right? He's very excited to find that out, but he's wondering, how come this other me is so successful? What did this other me do to get this big house and to have this great job and to have all of these accolades? And he's written books, and he learns that the secret is this idea of go for no. And it was something that he actually kind of stumbled over and just decided that it wasn't that important. So that's really the lesson. And the twist is that really, in order for the successful version for him to, I guess, get manifested, to survive, to live, the non-successful version of himself really needs to learn and embrace this idea of go for no, right?
Yeah,
so it's kind of it's a really fun story, and I think it connects with people on an emotional level. But of course, the message is important too, and that is that too many times we are the ones that say no to ourselves rather than having the willingness to hear no from someone else.
Yes.
Right? And there's nowhere that you see that more than, I think, in art, especially publishing, right?
Yeah.
You should hear no's from people who don't want to publish your book or who don't want to read your book,
Right.
but that you shouldn't give yourself the no. And in terms of writing your book, you've got to get your book out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's an amazing epiphany that I had. And I've gone through that. I've been in sales for a number of years. I started out doing direct sales in 2004. And that's actually how I discovered your book. I was doing some direct sales through the Amway Corporation, and our team, Brit Worldwide, recommended that as one of the monthly readings. And so, you know, so you constantly have to have this inner battle with yourself, where you're looking at the phone and you're saying, should I make this call? They're right now, they probably don't even want what I have. And you're going through this concept, but in actuality, that you 100% of the people you don't talk to is the answers already no, right? So all you have to do is risk by just putting yourself in a position. And I remember where I was. I actually ordered the book on audio, got the audio book, right? And so I'm listening to it and I'm getting these emotions like, man, like I remember where I was when I first read it. And so what it did for me, and I don't want to give, because you gave a great synopsis, I don't want to go too deep, because I want folks to read the book, but the principles that you gave, you know, there's some really simple steps, simple keys that you offered. How has this book impacted you, right? As the co-author, and then what are some of the impacts that have happened as a result for other people as a result of you putting that book out there?
Great question. So the things that have happened to both Richard and me have been really getting to see the power that I think your words can have. I didn't realize how successful this book would eventually be, no matter how, I mean, I wanted it to be successful, obviously, but how transformative it could be, because it is a really counterintuitive concept, right?
Yeah.
We've all been taught and trained to go for yes. Obviously, that's what we want, but this whole idea of you've got to be willing to hear no, it is very counterintuitive. Yeah. So I'm very honored. I'm very humbled that people buy the book, that they read it. And probably the toughest thing, though, Rob, to be honest, is that I feel I get way too, like, I feel Richard and I get way too much credit. And I understand it, because there's books that I've read that have made such a difference to me. And I would love to tell the author or write the author, hey, this is what your book did for me. But the people that really are successful with Go for No, we shouldn't get patted on the back. Go for No is an idea that will go nowhere unless somebody takes the action. Right, you know that. Right. It's a great idea, but until you put it into action and you actually have the courage to go out there and put it into practice, right, it's the people that do it who need to get all the credit, not us. So I guess that's the only thing I kind of feel sometimes, is I always say to people, I super appreciate the compliments, but you're the one who has to face the rejection and move through it. And so that's a big part of it. We've seen so many great success stories, though. We've had so many people like yourself. I mean, I remember you. We've been connected for like ever, I feel like, for years and years. Yeah. And so to watch people like you, whose journey, all over the place, right? And twists and turns, but always with this one central idea of, I'm not going to give up. That's right. Like to be persistent and to keep going. Yeah. There's so many amazing success stories. Some of it is actual numbers, like people who, they make sales, they make deals. But a lot of it is just people who've said, wow, you've kind of opened my mind to just a new way of thinking. Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think a big part of my just a term I want to use, just being a fan, is the fact that, okay, I've read this book, it impacted me, and you know what, I'm going to reach out to the author and say, let's connect. And so now, we get connected on social, on LinkedIn, and now I'm in a role where I get to, pay my honor and respect,
right, to other authors. You know, I myself, I had the opportunity to co-author a book project, which I conveniently make sure that I place in the background here, right? But I'm also working on a second book, and I would have never thought when I graduated from college in 2004 that I would be, number one, an author, but number two, in a position where I can empower, inspire, and influence the visibility of authors. And so you're exactly right. And I'm appreciative of how you put the spotlight on the readers, but at the same time, we still got to make sure we give you guys your flowers as well, because so talk a little bit about your journey as an author. Is this your only book, or have you published before? Talk a little bit about just the journey and maybe the challenge that you had to overcome to get this and other books out into the marketplace.
So we started really early, before Amazon was even in existence. When Richard and I got together, the very first book we wrote was a little book called Unlocking the Secrets of Retail Magic. And it was designed for store managers who worked in retail. Basically, that was kind of our niche. And it was a 64-page fable. And the way we figured out how to write and publish this book was we drove to the bookstore. This is old school. Drove to the bookstore, found a book on how to self-publish. And we typed up the manuscript, we wrote the book and sent it off to a printer. And we had to order, I think our first order, we ordered 3,000 copies of this book.
Wow.
And yeah, and we sent it out to potential clients. We wanted to work with the big retail organizations like you'd see in the mall. So we would send them copies of this book. We'd send it to the CEO. We would send it to the vice presidents. We'd send it to the people in the training department. And that was the thing that really opened a lot of doors for us. Books open doors. That's what they do, for sure. And so once we kind of learned that process, then a couple of years later, in that book, we talk a little bit about Go for No. So Richard said we should write just a book focused on Go for No. So I said, okay, let's do it. He was the lead writer. He wrote it in 17 days. Just sat down and pounded it out. And then I took it and I edited it. And I will tell you, Rob, I think we ordered 5,000 copies of that. We sent it off to the printer. We ordered 5,000 copies. They came, we put them in our garage, and we were going to do the exact same thing that we did with Retail Magic, the other book. We sent out 500 copies we bought a mailing list to all these influential people, vice president of sales, CEOs, you name it. And we put an order form in there because we figured they're going to want to order it for like their whole sales force, right? Nothing happened.
Crickets.
Yeah, nothing happened. And we said, well, maybe the post office like threw all of our books away. I mean, maybe and then we got one order and we realized, unfortunately, that they probably all made it to their destination, but for some reason, people didn't like the book. So we were pretty deflated, to be honest. We were pretty depressed, and we beat our heads against the wall for a couple of years, and we were always giving the books out. We were just giving them away, knowing that if we gave a book to the right person, who knows what would happen. And eventually, about probably 5 years in, we gave the book to this guy at this conference. He was in sales. He called us a couple days later, and he says to us, are you both open-minded? Are you coachable, basically? And we said, yeah, we're open-minded, we're coachable, right? Everybody wants to believe that. And he said, well, listen, he goes, I think you've written one of the greatest sales books ever. He goes, but you guys have the worst cover in the history of publishing. And if you would be willing to change it, I'll buy 5,000 copies. And so we looked at each other, Richard and I were both on the phone. We look at each other, we're like, yes, we will change the cover. And Rob, the problem was that everything we were doing back then, we kind of bootstrapped, Richard actually designed that first cover, and it was horrible. I have to admit, it was not, he thinks he's, in his own mind, he thinks he's a designer, and he's not. So we hired a legit book cover designer. This is why you have to spend money on your cover. You're talking
real good. Give them the real deal. Listen, for those of you who are listening and watching, this is so Richard and Andrea, they're not like new to this, right? So I hope you understand what she's saying. Like, this is before people can post a book on Amazon and do like the little tricks to say, oh, I sold 1,000 copies at 99 cents and I'm the #1. No, they bootstrapped and they bought thousands. All right, like you giving me some real good information. So you bought so what you're saying is you bought thousands of books, right? For the Go for No. We're not even talking about the first book, right?
Right.
You bought you said 5,000 copies, and 10% of that you sent off, and it was crickets, other than one person who had the guts enough to say, hold up, listen, this is good, but your cover is trash. So if you're willing to, now check out, please, I hope you all didn't miss this. He said, if you change the cover, I'll buy what? 500? No, 5,000. So hold up. You saying you bought 5,000, you gave away 500, and you got one person to buy 5,000. Oh my Lord in heaven, that is amazing. And then you just continue to say it's going to require you to be able to do what? Invest money the right way with the right people to get your project to the next level. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. And we had to be open-minded. I mean, if we were defensive, if we had said, you're just wrong. But at that point, I mean, we were willing to do whatever it took. And we said, you know what? Yes. And by the way, small nuance. We had sent out those 500 copies. This was a couple years later. So we had been continuing to give out. I mean, this was probably the next, we had probably given out another easy 500 to 1,000 copies
of the new version as well.
Yeah, no, the Go
okay,
for.
So the old copy you gave away about 500, and then when you got the newer ones, you just stayed with your strategy of giving them away, because you knew that by giving them away to the right person would be the one that's like, hey, I like this, I want to order a bulk, and it would actually make up for the 500 that you gave away. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, back then we called it the influencer strategy. And this was before we had influencers, like everybody knows influencers today.
And the blue check. That's right. The blue check and the influence, everybody's running after that. That's good.
That's right. And this was, of course, before, I mean, I feel so old now. This is before Twitter, it's before Facebook. This is all like offline stuff, right? So we're mailing things. It was expensive. Now you don't do it, you don't do it all at one time, but it gets somebody's attention when somebody gets a book. They tend to, people will throw away business cards, and they'll throw away flyers, and they'll throw away other stuff, but people still respect books. And so, as I said, books can open doors. So after we changed the cover, we kind of beat our heads against the wall for another few years. And on it was December 31st, 2010. I'll never forget it, because we were in Miami at the time. We were at South Beach. It was New Year's Eve. Our book finally hit, now it's on Amazon by now. We put it on Amazon at this point. It finally hit #1 in the sales and selling category. And so from the time we published it in 2000, it was 2010. So it took us 10 years to hit that #1 spot.
Oh man. So so what you're saying is that you're not an overnight success?
10-year overnight success.
So what you're saying is it wasn't like an instant, like you jump online and all of a sudden, boom, it took you 10 years. First of all, this is actually much more than I bargained for. As someone who read the book, like, I'm so encouraged right now, and I pray that those who are listening or watching will get this message that you're sharing, because it is challenging being an author, right? I read a statistic that said that 2% of the world's population are actually authors, right? So if you think about how we got 8 billion people on the planet, like 2% is not even a scratch of the surface, right? And even though it's still a pretty large, 2% of 8 billion is still a lot of people. That's still not a lot of people. You feel what I'm saying? And so there's still room for new ideas and new concepts. Andrea, as we land the plane, as we wrap up, where are you going next? Where are you and Richard going next? Obviously, you've been in this industry. You've been doing it for several decades. You've been impacting people with your books and your training. Where are you going next? What's on the horizon for you as you move on into this new season?
So the last decade, Rob, I've really focused on I've really just focused on sharing the Go for No message. We continue to do that because I really believe in it. It will never, I'm passionate, it never gets old for me, no matter how many times I tell the stories, no matter how many times I talk about the book. I love it, I believe in it. Yeah. So we just keep iterating, right? During the pandemic, during the lockdowns, we ended up creating 2 workbooks. One was called the Go for No Leader. We created a Go for No 21-day challenge. So I just encourage people who are writing books to think about your brand and what else you can layer on top of it. That's kind of what we've been doing. I've got a course. I'm doing I've decided that I want to do some group coaching next year and take the Go for No challenge that we put in workbook form and bring that to life. So I'm just always looking for ways to get the message out, basically.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful that you accepted my invitation, that I was able to go for no, and I got a yes, and so now you get a chance to impact our network of self-publishing 30 days even more. So we're truly grateful. Can you let us know what's the best way for folks to contact you if they want to really dive into your movement and possibly place an order for 5,000 more copies of your book? I'm speaking that in advance. What's the best way for folks to connect with you? If they want to bring you in, or if they want to, maybe interview you as well, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
Absolutely, it's easy. Just go to goforno.com, our website. You've got a fun quiz that people can take. They can read our blog and just check it out. Plus, I'm on social at Go for No on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. So yeah, if you have any questions, if you need any help, definitely reach out to me for sure. And I really appreciate you having me. I'm glad you went for no. I would never say no to you. So
I appreciate that. See, I think there's a strategy to that too. It's like, you lead with the give, like you lead with the gift, like you shared that already, right? So, my thing is lead with the gift. So I got a little bit of a curveball, and then we'll land the plane here. So obviously you're locked into the Go for No message. You got a movement, but say for example, you decide, you know what, I think I want to write another book. Like I want to go on another topic. I want to go in another direction. Say for example, that happens. Where in the world would you go to write that next book if I was paying for it? If my team and I were going to pay for it, you and Richard, or you were solo, or however's going to go, if you said, you know what, I'm ready to put this next book out there, where in the world would you go to write this book? Clearly Richard did it in 17 days. So, if you guys did another 20 days somewhere else, but where in the world would you travel if you were to, say, I'm inspired to write another book, and we were paying for it?
I love that idea. I hope that happens. So I think I would go to somewhere in Italy, like Rome or Tuscany. I love to eat pasta and I love to drink Italian wine. So I don't know if I would hopefully I could get the book done, but I would go there.
I love it. No, we've had a couple of people. So that's a question that I ask to my guests that come on. Is a bit of a curveball, but it does allow for us to really get to know the people that we interview. And I've had 1 or 2 people mention Italy. I think the most popular place has been Africa. People just want to get dropped off in the continent. I'm like, that's a continent, right? It's like, yeah, just drop me anywhere in the continent. I've had people say where the water's blue. I also had somebody say they want to go up to the mountains. And then the place that I didn't expect a person to say, I'm thinking they were going to say somewhere abroad. They said, you know what, my house. I was like, okay, save me some money, right? So if you're going to stay in your house and write your book, that's cool too. Andrea, thank you so much once again for gracing us with your presence. Once again, folks, Go for No, go definitely visit the website, go buy thousands of copies, and make sure when you do, reach out and let her know that you heard about her on the author spotlight here, Self-Published in 30 Days, where our focus is on encouraging and connecting aspiring authors to become self-published authors. Listen, this is the year for your new book, but the one thing you got to remember is to be encouraged, be blessed, and most of all, continue to share the faith. And the way that you do that is by walking in your gift, because your gift will make room for you. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.